Hey folks, it's Skip here from On Tour Fishing Australia. So I've got my good mate Granny Coleman here. Now Granny's been working with knives for ever since he was a young bloke, and the knives that I've seen over the years are so sharp, from shaving himself to his his arms, his legs, his face. You know what. So Granny's just going to talk us through what has really worked for him over the years. He doesn't claim to be an expert, but I tell you what, he's bloody good with the knife. So, Granny, if you want to talk us through, so this problem with this knife at the moment, this sort of Swiss bait.
At the moment, you've given this knife a lot of work, and it's got no edge at all on it. It's just blunt, won't cut nothing.
Yeah. So it's been a while since he's had a sharpening.
All it's going to do is tear the paper.
Yeah.
So, and at the moment, you can see it's got what I call a poor man's edge, because it's got a shoulder in there, and that needs to be taken right back down so it's a nice flat. So as you can see, the blade, a little bit of corrosion on it, but that'll come off once we've started sharpening it.
Yeah.
But you can see that is blunt as.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'll get a little bit of oil put on my stone. Now I've secured the stone to the bench. Usually it's best if you can get it in a vise, because the more effort you put into when you're putting pressure on your blade, if the stone's moving, then you're losing the effort. So it's not going to have the same amount of on blade. So hence you're putting in twice as amount of work for half the effect. So we've got to put a little bit of oil on the stone. The other thing, when you use the stone, you don't just use in the middle, which is, or you'd end up with a dip. And then you reckon a good stone, you should always use the full face of a stone when you sting.
Okay.
Now the other thing I do is always put my fingers on the blade, and then it's about getting that sweet spot. So when you start moving it, and you work the whole way along, so the whole stone gets worked from the tip all the way through, and it's just a repetitive action. Yeah. And you can, I call the blade singing it to me. So when you get it in the right spot, you can just hear that hum. And it's just doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. If you go up too tight like that, that's where you get your poor man's edge, and you just don't get a good edge. Yeah. And if you don't want sharp in the back of it, you've got to have that. So that's why it's the feel. And the other good thing about this, if you do it properly now, do the hard yards now, and you get the benefit later. So when you are using your knife and it does start to get a little bit dull, a couple of strikes on your steel, and you can bring your edge straight back. Okay. Of course, you always do. Yeah. Because this is blunt, you need to bring it back down again. Fines for only finishing, and then you got your steel, and then you can use I also use a leather strop. So I keep working it backwards and forwards, and it's not so much for the blade, but it's also for the stone, to get the longevity out of your stone. And you can see how effective, by having the stone on the wet paper, that stone's not moving anywhere. Where if it was just straight on the bench, the stone would be sliding. Walking all around.
And how long would you sort of do that for on a blunt knife?
Every blade is different. With the amount of steel, the quality of your steel in your blade. So some you can bring them up relatively quick, and then others, it may take you half an hour. And now I've just turned over, and you do the exact same thing in the opposite direction. But you just maintain the same action. It's just and you're feeling that edge.
And you've never, buddy, had a problem where you've slipped and cut yourself at all, mate?
You've got to watch. You've got to pay attention. It's not something that you've got to keep your focus on the job.
You've obviously done this for a long time. And you've still got all your fingers.
Maybe a few scars.
You're just basically keeping that off only sort of a few degrees, you know, maybe, I don't know, 11, 15 degrees or something like that from the stone, mate.
Yeah, mate, it's basically keeping that, so it's that edge, because these are flat blades, and it's just keeping it so that the front of that blade has to touch that edge. And because these had like I said, a poor man's edge on it, it's got a little bit of shoulder, so it takes that little bit extra to bring it back to the centre line.
So, Granny, just explain again what's the sort of best bet to try to avoid getting cut with this, apart from maybe, I guess if you're to wear the gloves, the steel gloves, it's going to be slippery, isn't it?
the other thing with your gloves, it's still about feel.
Yeah.
So I try and put them on that back edge of that knife, so my fingers are putting pressure there, and then I'm maintaining downward pressure on the knife.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to slip your fingers forward, and then you, especially once you get to the sharper edge, it's nothing to take a slither of skin out of your fingers. So you obviously don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just keeping them, because fingers at the back, and then like I've been doing it for a lot of years, so I can move my fingers backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
But it's keep 100% concentration on the job while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is a little accident. But this knife's going to take a bit of work to bring it back, because it's had a hard life so far. That's all I was going to say. It's either that or Skip's caught way too many fish for his fair share. That downward pressure, you just got to make sure that you're keeping that base of your blade on the stone at that right angle. So like I said, you don't, and that's by having your fingers on it, the blade's flat on the stone. If you go like that, you know, and you can't maintain it.
Yeah.
There are other things out there that you can buy that will get that perfect edge. But I've always been a freehand sharper. I've never used any fancy devices, and I can't say, as Sean can testify, I haven't got a blunt knife in my kit. Yeah. Whether it's a pocket knife or whether it's a roadie hunting knife. Yeah. A grinding process that you just got to wear it down to get back to that sweet edge. Okay. And then once we've got it down to fit where we want it, then we'll flip the stone over, put it onto the fine, and then fit the final edge into it. And then we finish it off with the steel.
Yeah.
And if there's after you use the steel and you think it can come up a little bit more, you can always use a leather belt, and it doesn't take a lot or on a piece of leather to bring a blade up either. Once it's got a sharp edge.
All right, Greenie. So you flipped over the stone now.
Yeah, mate. I think I've got rid of most of that shoulder off the blade that we had originally. Yeah. And it's just starting to get a little bit better feel to the blade. Yeah. So I've flipped it over to the finer to get that final edge on it. And now I'm just a matter of, and straight away you can hear that singing sound is what I call it. It's just a nice smooth grind with the action, and you can, hopefully it'll work and we'll get a finer edge and a nice sharp blade now.
Nice. Yeah, Greenie, sorry, what were you saying with the variance in the knife?
Because you've got your fingers on the front of the blade, most times you'll end up getting a nice sharp edge here. Yep. And you won't be as sharp back in the back. So when you're feeling it and you do find it that this is a little bit, then you can concentrate just in the back part. Okay. So it's just a matter of, obviously when you first start you're trying to do the whole blade, but as you go on, some parts will come up quicker than others. Yep. So you just got to be aware of that. And then once you're feeling it, then you can feel one part's still a bit duller, then you can concentrate on that part a little bit longer, as you can see along there, because as I've been cutting, shaping it, that tiny little edge that's in the corner there, that's where the poor man's edge is. You probably see it more on this side. You've got just there, you can still see where the poor shoulder is. So we need to get this still down to that centre line to get rid of that last little bit of edge there, because at the moment that's stopping us from getting that nice edge on it. Okay. But we'll keep working.
Righto.
I've finished on the stone. You can see that most of that shoulder's been taken off there now. Yeah. But unfortunately there's still a few little nicks in the blade. So I'll just give it a couple of swipes on the steel. Just to take off any fine edges. And then we'll check it on the paper.
Paper test. Look at that. So there we go. We had a very blunt knife, and now she's as good as gold. So thank you, Greenie.
You're welcome, mate.
Very, very nice job. So yeah, I hope you got a bit out of those tips, folks, and can sharpen your own knives up. Cheers.